It's your boy Malc, representing Bayonne, New Jersey. 94 till forever, do you never them. We rockin' live with Heritage Hip Hop.
Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Karev from Heritage Hip Hop, and we study the game. We don't just talk about the game. And we hopefully this interview will show you how studied and well prepared not only we are, but this young man is as well. Introduce yourself to the people.
My name Malc, representing Jersey, Bayonne to be specific. 94 till forever. There too, do you never them, baby.
Alright, so then, here we go. Welcome to Heritage Hip Hop. Please tell me, who is Malc and what makes him hip hop?
Malc is hip hop because I'm the embodiment of hip hop. I feel I got it all throughout my veins. The grittiness, the wittiness, the hunger. You know what I mean? Storytelling, all of that. So I got all of that in me. I feel I am hip hop right now.
The essence of hip hop is to take something from nothing and create a dynasty or a legacy that you will always be remembered for. Tell me about the legacies that were built in you that made you the man you are to bring you to hip hop.
Well, honestly, I got a real heavy legacy. My grandfather actually, he a prominent pastor, where I'm from, and my father followed in his footsteps for a minute. So I got a real strong alpha male kind of legacy going on with me, and the legacy of being able to use my words. I'm not using my words the same way they would have used them in the church and all that. I'm using them in a more millennial way. You know what I mean? A little more vulgar, but I'm still getting through the same message, similar to what they getting through.
I feel that because you are actually like them. Because you both, all three of you, have the same passion for wordplay, and that makes you an orator. And orators are the most dangerous yet most influential people in society. What's dangerous about you being on the mic and being able to speak to masses rather than staying silent?
I'm young, black, and I got a voice, and I know how to articulate myself in ways to get through to every different type of demographic. I can identify with the middle-aged people, what they going through somewhat, because I have family members I can identify with, the college kids, the younger kids, and I feel as though my music is extremely relatable because everybody go through hard times, ups and downs in life, and that's what I'm talking about, overcoming everything. There's no such thing as an L. You flip an L, flip two L's to a W, you feel what I'm saying? So,
insightful. Are you as spiritual as your grandfather and father are?
I would like to say, my father, he rest in peace, my father, he wasn't as religious. My father was spiritual. My grandfather's religious. It's a big difference in that. I feel I'm not necessarily religious. I believe in spiritual. I believe in the universe. I believe that there's something else out there, not necessarily in a constructive. I don't know what the word for it. Not necessarily in a religion form. I just believe in a higher power, and I'm real spiritual.
So let's bring the higher power out of you and let's talk man to man right now.
Sure.
We said orator, which means oration, which means to speak, to eloquently give an idea into the mind of somebody who listens and hears you. Mm-hmm. Two different paradigms. So here we go. I ask you this. How important is your voice rather than your action when it comes to a message?
My voice, I mean, you can hear me, but I believe the actions speak louder than words. So it's one thing for me to come over a song and preach this, that, and the third, we kings, all that other stuff. But if you see me on Instagram or doing other stuff that's not king-like or not godly-like, what's the point of me saying that? I think actions speak louder than words.
They do, but we're focusing on the wordplay now. Okay. Because most people don't know you. They know what they hear first, then they check you. Yeah. Spiritually speaking, it was once written that when Christ walked into a mountain to preach on the Mount of Olives, his voice was so strong that it sounded like rushing waters, and it divided the minds of men. Mm-hmm. When Malc is on a song, Malc's voice is so clear and transparent that it either hits you to your heart or hits you to your soul, dividing the bullshit from what you hear on the radio. Yeah. So then your voice is just as impactful. Why is it important to make words and make songs that not only cut to the hearts of men, but cut to the spirit of their ears and their hip-hop taste?
Because since the beginning of time, music has been our people, African American. We was Africans before we was Americans. So since the beginning of time, that's how our people have got our message through. That's how we dealt with our slavery and all types of stuff. So I believe that me using my voice and all that, hitting it into your heart and soul is just something that's ingrained in me. It comes from my ancestors, and it's extremely important because that's the quickest way to get to somebody through music. It's the quickest way to touch their mind and soul. I mean, when don't people listen to music? At every function, everywhere you go, there's some type of music being played. In churches, synagogues, mosques, everywhere, there's some type of music. And that music is something people identify with and what they use to get them through the days, the weeks, the minutes, the seconds, whatever they're going through.
And that's what makes the impact of you bringing up your father so important, because when you first say you are the embodiment of hip hop, do you really understand what that means?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me bring it to you this way. You can agree or disagree. You have a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And the heart is the drum of the track.
Yeah.
You have a system, which means that's harmony, and you have to be harmonious in music to be eloquently and be heard. Am I right?
Yeah.
So having a beat, having a system, having a step, which means you have a meter of how fast you walk, how fast you run. It also traces the steps or the pace of music. Am I right? So music has been with you since the womb. Then, as you were born, you were taught the spirit, shown the spirit, and been legacy the spirit, so that your walk now is in tune, in step, and then you pass on your rhythm to somebody else. How important is it for you to honor that legacy in your music, but to establish at the same time?
It's extremely important, because in my music, I mentioned my dad a lot and the big impact that he had on me and how certain stuff he instilled in me. I don't have kids myself, but I may be inspiring or instilling in the next person who my age, older, younger than me. So in turn, like you're saying, I'm passing on my legacy right now, not to my offspring, but to the world. And like you were saying, when I was born, I still had rhythm. I still had all that. I can remember my moms and pops telling me he used to be playing Thelonious Monk through headphones on my mom's belly and Malcolm X speeches. So all of that, the jazzy, the soulful stuff, that I'm wondering why now, because I've only been rapping 2 years, why I got that in me. And come to find out, it's always been inside of me. Like, it's always been there. It just took a traumatic event or a serious turn events for it to come out of me.
That's usually how most prominent artists become great. It was a movie called The Five Heartbeats. Familiar? You watch it? So you remember this part, and this is one of my favorite parts of the movie because it made sense. It said Duck would not become a great writer until he experienced pain. And that's what hip hop is. A lot of the greatest stories in the world would not have been known until there was pain, and people were able to reflect and give the pain out. What was the most painful event that turned you into an artist, not into a person who does art?
I'm not even gonna necessarily say my pop's death was it. It was the aftermath of it. Cause the crazy thing is, I did the usually, I did all of that. Like my friends, my homies say, yo, you blessed to have had him for 23 years. I got my pops alive right now. He not involved in my life. I never met him, so that kind of kept me in spirits. But when I did the eulogy, I did the funeral, I ain't cried one tear. I'm looking around everybody else crying tears. I ain't feel it then. Maybe state of shock, whatever. I didn't feel it till months later when you know what, I gotta get a job. I gotta help moms with these bills, and I see her, she going through what she going through, and I'm trying to remain a rock for her. So that's when it necessarily really hit me, and that's when I feel like after my first tape, Free Game, the next tape was Progression. That's when I really got into my bag and really started becoming the man I am today. I'm still becoming a man every day, every second, but I'm still learning more and more about myself. I like to say the months after my pop's death is what really got me in tune with myself.
Transition is the heart of what makes man a man. Because unfortunately in life, we were taught to live against the grain when we were supposed to live for the grain. Remember, the grain is a seed, and as you give the seed purpose, it grows, it blossoms, and is able to give fruit to others and also seeds to continue its growth. So when we were taught against the grain, we were taught how to live off our purpose and to depend. As a hip hopper, you're not a dependent entity, you're an independent entity. And unfortunately, people gravitate to take from your independence, but your manhood shines, which is the grain, to give off yet to protect. As an artist, what is the most important thing for you to protect, your name or your integrity?
Me personally, I feel they go hand in hand. I feel like when you hear my name, you tie that with integrity, you tie that with self-worth, and all that stuff goes hand in hand. So me personally, they go hand in hand, and I want to protect both. I want it to be where when you hear me, he don't be on that sucker stuff, or he don't do this, that, and the third. That's part of what our brand is about. Do you, never them, rather than fitting in, stand out. And a lot of times, the standout dudes are the ones who go their own path, while everybody else riding a certain wave that might not be righteous. So I'm not saying I'm the most perfect man in the world, but might not be this, that, and the third. You ride your own wave. You move it to your own beat, and as long as you move with integrity, you'll be straight.
Can you be perfect?
No.
You can be perfect.
I don't think so. There's only one perfect man that walked this earth, Jesus.
That's not true.
Who else?
The Bible said David was perfect.
Truth.
The Bible said Moses was perfect. The Bible said Abraham was God's friend. So there has to be perfection in. See, perfect doesn't mean flawless. Perfect means balance. Right. So whether you do right or wrong, your integrity and your name do go hand in hand. Just like your music. Your music go hand in hand, like you said, with your life, your experience, your message, and your legacy. So all in all, Malcolm or Malc is not just an MC. Malc is a story that's being written and a legacy being preached.
That's a fact.